Hello all, in the last episode we journeyed through the High Wall of Lothric on New Game Plus and showcased some of the changes I'd make if I could. This series is not meant to be taken seriously and most of these things are mere shower thoughts or hey that'd be pretty cool type of stuff. Although as we mentioned in the previous episode, the New Game Plus in Dark Souls 3 is not very good, and our job is to create a somewhat different experience from the regular new game without going overboard and creating an entirely new atmosphere. So expect little changes here and there, but drastic enough that they should be noticeable if entering into a New Game Plus cycle. Today we're going to embark into the Undead settlement, so without further ado, let's see a better New Game Plus. I've always enjoyed that set piece when walking down the steps after the first stupidly pointless bonfire. The way the handler sets off his dogs and they just clean everything up. So that's not changing. What's different for our player now is the hollows aren't so defenseless. As the hounds are released, two of the hollows will drop to the ground and explode, turning into the malformed pus of man we've seen prior. The gate quickly closes behind the dogs as they run out, which will not let the player rush through, which I've found out to be what most players do at this point in the game. Instead, the contraption which opens the gate is locked. To open it, the player must defeat the beast handler, and on death he'll drop the settlement gate key which will unlock the contraption and allow the player to proceed as normal. This to me just makes the initial encounter just a tad more interesting. You have pus of men, dogs and the beast handler, in which you are required to kill. Not only is this no longer an area where you just sprint past the enemies, but it gives the player a choice. Are they going to engage the pus of men themselves or sit back at a distance and see what the beast handler and his dogs can do? Or do they rush to the beast handler and risk death via the new pus of man enemies? It's stuff like this where the community could figure out the best method. I've got speedrunners in mind here. Obviously with this addition it would slow down this initial manic sprint to the bonfire on the other side of this gate. So in my head I'm thinking, what creative methods will the community come up with to deal with this situation? When we've acquired the key and got through to the other side, we proceed to the multi-storied house like normal. When we reach the large bonfire surrounded by the townsfolk and that single evangelist, things start to change. This segment has always felt iconic, especially if you know the evangelist lore relating to the burning of the bodies. Firstly, I changed the way the townsfolk behave here. In the vanilla new game, it's very easy to dispatch these groups of mobs as they have a very close aggro range and are in vicinity of fire barrels which can clean them up really quickly. I'd like to boost their aggro range up, but not to an extent where we're faced with the artificial difficulty of having numerous enemies being thrown at you. So a single pack would face you, unless you were to rush through, but that's not changing much. So I had this idea of replacing the existing evangelist with an enemy I've kinda come up with on my own. The evangelists we know today are big people and somewhat slow for Dark Souls 3 standards. Now I thought it'd be pretty cool to have this type of larger, skinnier type that were used to quickly round up townsfolk to deliver them to be burned. As we approach the giant bonfire, we're met with a new enemy type called Gatherers. These masked figures are quick on their feet. Think of the enemies we fight in Irithyll. These gatherers are armed with golden swords and they can flip. I quite like this because I came up with my own little tale for them to have these. As you know, the golden swords appeared in Dark Souls 1, where the Dark Silver Tracer, the one in our left hand, would apply toxic, and as we know the evangelists gave their victims fire pellets to numb the pain of being burned to death. So I kind of wanted to expand on that. The Gatherer would stick them with the Silver Blade and apply some numbing toxin, then use the Fire Blade to finish them off. When we kill the Gatherer by the large bonfire, we acquire their weapon. I did think about having them drop the flip ring, but I don't really like the idea of the flip ring being in New Game Plus, but I guess that's a thought. As we make our way through the level and approach where Hodrick invades us for the first time, instead we find him already in our world and fighting the caged enemy. Once you help him win the battle, he gestures to come over to the cliff where the arrows have pierced the side. He will not attack you here, until you walk into firing range of the giant. This plays into what I mentioned in my Fixing the Covenant series about the Mound Makers, giving the Covenant some depth, actually having to gain the host trust. And again, this is about changing the experience from regular new game, and I feel as though this would be a pretty interesting change. Also, as I'm writing this, I just realized the exact thing already happened in Dark Souls 2 in the Ivory King DLC. I tried to be original and utterly failed. As we approach the end of the zone, we come head to head with the Irithyll Knight. Normally you'd run past it if you've already had the sword from New Game, so in this instance we're going to force the encounter. The door behind him is frozen shut. Only after the knight has been dispatched will the ice start to melt from the door, allowing passage to the Road of Sacrifices. As I mentioned, and I'll reiterate, we don't need to go into the game and change every aspect. We delved into only about 3 ideas here, but sometimes that's just what an area needed. We need to change what and how we encounter only slightly, so we still have the feel of the base game there. And you know these are just silly little random thoughts and you shouldn't take them seriously. Join me next time as we venture into the Farron Swamp. Eventually. Maybe. I'll do it. I'm sure I'll do it. Soon. Maybe. I've been Paragon. Until next time.